Merry Christmas Eve, comic book fans. I am Anchor Pete, and I am here with my good friend Brian, Mr. Core's Hair. Merry Christmas, Brian.
Merry Christmas, Pete.
I wouldn't want to spend Christmas Eve with anybody else besides my family than you, talking about comic books.
Yes.
Yes. So, Brian and I, just if you guys are new to the channel, this is Comic Books Transformed, where we talk about the movies, TV shows, and any other kind of media that's originally based on comics. And in this case today, we're talking about 2 episodes of Young Justice, episodes 11 and 12. And we're also talking about the finale of Hawkeye. So we got a lot of ground to cover. We always like to talk about Young Justice first because we feel like that show needs as much attention as it can because it's such an awesome show. And I'm sure you guys are dying to hear about what we thought about Hawkeye. So just stick around. So, Brian, we're doing 2 Young Justices right now. We're doing episode 11, which is Ydaer, right? Get ready.
Ydaer, yeah. Get ready.
And then this one's going to be hard to say. Hitrof, Reuqnoc. I don't know.
Go forth and conquer, yeah.
Go forth and conquer. So, Brian, it's kind of cool to have 2 because we can kind of compare them. Is there one that you preferred over the other?
Oh, I like them both fairly equally. I'm gonna give a slight edge to the more recent episode. Maybe it's because it's fresh in my mind, honestly. But I like that we got the shift to the backstory of Zatara. Sorry, I mixed up my names. Is Zatara's wife and Zatanna's mother Zatella, or were they saying Stella? I could not tell.
I think it was Cindella, wasn't it? Cindella?
Okay, I'm like, are they really all gonna have ZA names?
Yes. And did you say her name was Nutella? What did you just say?
No, I thought he said Zatella or Stella. I couldn't quite figure it out.
I think it was Cindella is her name.
Cindella. Okay, that comforts me a little bit. So it's not like super like everyone in Smallville is LL.
Right. It is a little annoying. Yeah. Yeah, well, poor Cindella had cancer and died, and that's what we learned about in the most recent episode. And what I liked about these episodes is that it wasn't just like the Phantom Stranger has been narrating all of them. They took a little break. Dr. Fate narrated the episode 11, and then Zatara narrated episode 12. So we're seeing all these different perspectives, but they're all kind of tied together. And I just think it's great to see all these different perspectives dealing with the same thing, which is essentially this conflict between chaos and order, right? So I liked the episode 11 because it did that kind of thing where you see in the minds of the 3 main characters that are not Zatanna. You have Khalid and Tracy 13 and Mary. I guess we're not calling her Mary. Is it Mary Batson?
No, it's Bromfield or Bromfeld. I was getting that mixed up too.
Okay. I'm sorry. What's up, Pepper? Okay. Sorry, my kid, I think, has something in my car. Here, just
Bromfield.
Record live. There you go. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so she in the comics would become Mary Marvel. In the show, she would become Sergeant. I don't know if it's supposed to be like Sergeant Marvel or Sergeant Shazam. But we saw her kind of fight her alter ego, which I always like scenes like that. What about you?
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed the overall test of all 3 characters that Dr. Fate provides for them to show that they're ready to take on this challenge of fighting these Lords of Chaos. And I was definitely drawn to Mary's story the most because it gave us a little more of what happened to her before, because we know this character, but not really that well in this show. I mean, she literally just appeared here. She was intended to appear. I think she was in some supplementary materials like books or comics or something for the show. But it's nice to see what happened. I mean, it was hinted at that the reason why she only uses one power at a time is because she kind of got addicted to using the power of Shazam, and she was staying as her alter ego all the time.
Yes.
So it's nice to see what something of what that looked like, and I'm kind of curious overall if we're gonna see her. I mean, we know from the comics at some point that she has like a darker turn. I'm wondering if the show will show that or not, because there was something specifically in the second episode where they're fighting Child, and she kind of uses, she kind of drains the power out of Khalid and Tracy 13. And I'm like, and they address it, but they kind of like just drop it. But there's one of those things where like they wouldn't do that if it didn't mean something, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that was a great little moment there where she's kind of like absorbing their powers because the ley lines were thrown off. And it's the idea that maybe she might become this villain that kind of like drains people's energy to like do her magic. I like that idea. On Twitter, and I always reference Twitter all the time, I follow a guy that is a huge Hawkman fan, where he just is always posting about Hawkman, and he's always kind of talking about how he's upset about the way that DC treats Hawkman. Then also on Twitter, I follow a guy that's a big Shazam fan or Captain Marvel fan, and he's always talking about how he's mad that DC mistreats Shazam or Captain Marvel. They don't know what to do with them. And they both kind of always complain about how DC always uses Batman all the time, right? Like there's 18 Batman books, but there's not one Shazam book or one Hawkeye book, right? But the reason why I bring that whole thing up is because I feel like there's so much potential with what you could do with like Billy Batson and his like adopted family, and with her, with Mary too. Like, and this show's just giving us a little glimpse of that. It's like really interesting, the idea that having these like young characters that can become older characters, and they have so much power, but they're like super young. I don't know. I like that we're getting a chance to see her. And did you have any doubt that any of them were going to pass the test?
Oh, of course not. No, of course they were all going to pass it, because they wouldn't have made it such a plot point if they weren't.
Yeah. What about like the religious aspect? 'Cause I think it's kind of interesting that, like, if I remember correctly, when they showed what's the Middle Eastern girl from last season? What's her character name?
Halo.
Thank you. Yes, right.
Violet.
Violet. Right. Thank you. Yeah. They did a bit about her religion and her identity last season, and in this episode, in episode 11, there was reference to Islam, and Khalid is a Muslim, and to me, it's almost kind of jarring to see something like that in a cartoon, because I feel like it's such a thing that you just never see in cartoons ever, because religion itself, just even talking about religion at all in a cartoon, seems kind of almost taboo, or like something that they're kind of anxious to talk about. But like they just went right in about him and his background and his religion, right?
Yeah, I feel like in terms of American media, if it's not Christianity, it's not really portrayed at all. And I actually really appreciated that they did portray it in some depth and with, which I assume is, a respectable portrayal of it.
Right.
Because truthfully, that the Muslim version can be kind of demonized here in the U.S.
Oh, absolutely.
Wrongfully so, but it's just nice that they do that. There have been other instances of this show has done that with it. Like you mentioned with Halo last year, and I feel like there's something else that I just can't remember. But I appreciate the detail that they put into that, and then kind of expanding the diversifying everything, really.
Exactly. And then the next episode, maybe to kind of compensate and be like, well, we care about Christianity too. They show Zatara, but they're also just showing that religious aspect too. And in both episodes, they play with the idea that faith is something that you can have and also believe in magic and use magic. And I think with Khalid, it's like he's going to use science, faith, and magic. So it's like all of them can be used all together. And I really like that idea. With Zatara, with his Christianity, I like that in episode 12, where like the magic stuff was overwhelming for him, but his faith was what made him stay alive with the Dr. Fate helmet. I like that touch too.
Yeah, I liked it too, in the sense that, like you mentioned, usually those things are kind of at odds. Whether it's magic or faith or and science, and sometimes most other medias, there's usually a different sides of it, and it's interesting to see them, both on the same character.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that Khalid is going to become Dr. Fate by the end of this arc?
Yeah, they're heavily hinting that the Zatara's body is kind of aging and wearing down. Assume because he's wearing the helmet all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was interesting too that every time that they showed a lot of Ken Nelson in the flashbacks, and
Yes.
never with the helmet on, always as Kent Nelson.
That's a good point.
More so that their relationship, I mean, the relationship between Kent and Naboo was more not as constant. So I can understand why Zatara looks so much older and drained and weary. So
Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely hinting that he's going to, not be Dr. Fate soon, but it does seem rather early to have Khalid take over.
Right.
He just introduced him. He's still training. He's still very young. But at the same time, maybe that's part of the interest there is that somebody's not quite ready for it, but he's going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the cool things about that episode was that there was all these flashbacks to all the different times they've used Dr. Fate on the show and all the different people that have put on the helmet. Because I actually honestly forgot. I forgot that like Caldor put on the helmet. I forgot that Zatanna put on the helmet. And of course, Wally, we all know he put on the helmet. That's a very standout episode. But like, there's been multiple bearers, and like the idea of what you're saying of like Khalid's still kind of young and like a little too early for him to wear it. It's like I think that probably will be the culmination of this whole arc. Is he's going to become Dr. Fate and probably take out the child. But like it's kind of crazy to think of how much Dr. Fate has been on the show and been a part of the show. From this like golden age superhero that's usually associated with the Justice Society and is a big part of this Young Justice show. I think that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Dr. Fate from like the 80s, and reading it from it must have been a Justice League comic. I don't think I had any JSA comics. I'm not really sure, but I remember always liking the costume and the helmet, and I think it was really cool. And they have those little, what is it, Imaginext, like those little tiny like kid figures. And I have a Dr. Fate. Well, my son has Dr. Fate. I don't have it. He has it, but I bought it for him. I'm like, oh my gosh, Dr. Fate! I have to get it.
Right. Have you played him in the Injustice game?
Is he in it?
He's in like Injustice 2, I think.
Oh my god! Have I not? I mean, there's a lot of characters in that game.
Yeah, I just remember like because sometimes on YouTube they'll have thumbnails and it'll be of that version of Dr. Fate, that Injustice Dr. Fate, and he's in the.
Yeah, maybe I'll put that on after this because I haven't played in a while, and I definitely didn't unlock anything because I usually just play that with my son, even though it's kind of violent. But he just likes he likes me to hit random and play like whoever, and he gets to pick who he wants, usually a bad guy. And that's why maybe I haven't seen Dr. Fate yet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's in there. And I'm a big fan of the game too. I go to like, a place called Pinballs, which is like Chuck E. Cheese but like for adults, even Buster's kind of thing. And they have a game like that. And me and my kids are always getting the cards from the game.
Oh, I love those.
Yeah.
Marvel. I played a lot of the Marvel one that does that, the Contest of Champions.
Yeah, unfortunately at Pinballs, they don't have that Dr. Fate. Just as a little side note, which is probably interesting to no one besides you and me. Have you ever played Killer Bees at an arcade?
Killer Bees? No, I don't think so.
Or maybe it's called Killer Queen. It's essentially like a game where...
Yeah.
Okay.
So the characters are bees. Yeah, I've never played it, but I know what it is.
Oh, man. That's like my favorite thing to play at an arcade, because it's just $1 and 8 people can play at a time.
Nice.
Yeah. That's a little tangent, and who cares? We're gonna wrap up this Young Justice. So, they killed freaking Tikal.
Yes, they killed Tikal, and I think Clarion possesses the bus.
That's perfect. That's why that's the thumbnail for this episode.
Yeah, I really enjoyed seeing the eyes pop up in the bus. It was almost like Magic School Bus or something like that. Like
right.
Really messed up in it.
But let me ask you this: do you feel like that's kind of over explaining or trying to wedge in something that was just kind of like a running gag, or do you like that?
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate when they take such a long-standing gag and then give it depth. I like retcon it in a way. I'm totally up for stuff like that.
Yeah, I like that they showed all the flashbacks and they showed like all the many times we've seen that freaking bus.
Yeah, I and you know what? My favorite one too was the one with Superboy and Superman, and it kind of reminded me of their kind of strained relationship because I mean Superman had talked about how he didn't know how to act around Connor,
Right.
And I just forgot about it really, but that really like perfected how it was, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a little flashback. And that's probably from like the first season, right?
Yeah, it had to have been.
Right, because by the second season there's a time jump. So I think that's from the first season. But yeah, I love how they explained the bus basically, and they showed all the clips. And then that was the end credits for episode 11, was just them on the bus going like, ah, right?
Yeah.
Ah! um, so Clarion is, he becomes the bus because Tico's been killed. And I'm really glad I didn't show my daughter any of that episode because that would have just traumatized her for Christmas.
Wow.
But I'm just trying to think. So essentially, the child goes around and just causes chaos all over the globe. And you were talking about before the fact that Zatara wears the helmet of fate all the time, whereas Kent Nelson didn't. And I think that in the second episode, they kind of allude to the idea that there's more like chaos in general in the world. Did you, was it like I think like Superman, I think, says something about that in the post credits. He says like, it just seems like things are getting crazier these days and we need a bigger Justice League, right?
Yeah, they're talking about a reserve system because they call out at one point that the wizard helped them out, who was a villain, and they can't always count on things like that. So it's possible. I mean, it could just be like foreshadowing for the ultimate end of this season, sort of, and then we'll see a Justice League Reserve kind of implemented in by the end of the season, as like the epilogue, sort of.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that just like in general, there's just been like more chaos, and that's why Zatara's always had to wear the helmet too.
Yeah, but at the same time, he's not in every episode, and also he seems to always be in his tower every time they need him. So I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, obviously, yes. And in this scenario here, there's those fire tornadoes like all across the world, and they call on everybody to come help. And you see lots of background characters that we haven't, the major heroes we haven't seen in a long time. Like we saw Black Canary, Green Arrow, and we saw Red Tornado,
Wonder Woman,
yeah. And I'm assuming that was Hippolyta. How you saying her name?
The mom?
Her mom, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. I think there were so many characters. They showed like Blue Devil at one point, the Demon, and that reminds me because like Red Tornado used to be a big part of the show.
Yeah, he was like their babysitter.
Yeah. So yeah, it's crazy how far we've kind of gone from the beginning of the show to now.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of it about Young Justice. Did you have anything else you want to say about it?
Yeah, actually, yes. So one of the things I thought was interesting is that I feel like with the first two arcs, you got a lot of history about, the first arc was mainly about Mars and Miss Martian, and you got a lot of background info on her upbringing on Mars and all that. And the second one was like a family tale with Artemis and Jade. And I feel like they're giving us more backstory with the three trainees and Zatara than they are with Zatanna. And Zatanna never really got that like big arc before. She's been in a decent number of episodes, but she never really had an arc, or she was like the main focus of it. I feel like they're jamming so much other stuff into here that her story is sort of suffering, I guess. And really, the entire thing about her story is, that her dealing with the not being able to interact with her father. That's really the only story beat they have with her, and I'm slightly disappointed at that. And I hope we get some more of depth to that character, because I do like the character, and I like her portrayal as Lacey Chabert, I believe. And I want to see more of it.
Okay, well, in that post-credit scene when Superman said the thing about the reserves, did you for a second there think he was going to say we need like a magic-based team? Did you think he was going to say something like that?
Maybe. Well, I mean, the Justice League in the comics has had reserves a lot, but I mean, I feel like they already do have that sort of like we've already seen those other characters kind of interacting with them, and they have the different teams. So maybe that is what they mean. And then maybe this is like a Justice League Dark sort of thing.
Right. Because that's kind of what I was thinking, was that like maybe to kind of make Zatanna's story have more impact or be bigger, it's that like it eventually leads to her having her own kind of Justice League dark team. It's more than just her pupils. Maybe like Khalid becomes Dr. Fate, and then she only has her 2 pupils, but then she takes on some more. I don't know.
Mary could kind of go bad at some point, so it's just Tracy.
Just Tracy, yeah.
And I think that could be an excellent plot point that Zatanna failed someone sort of, and not she would take responsibility for it. She didn't necessarily fail her, but yeah. And we already have Etrigan, and
Madame Xanadu.
Madame Xanadu, I was gonna say, yeah. So I don't think they're gonna use Constantine in this, but maybe Dead Man could be thrown in there. I think we've seen him in the background before in the episode. Yeah. I don't think he ever spoke though.
Okay, well, yeah, now's the best time, yeah. And I bet you $50 that by the end of this arc, there'll be an episode that every episode has like a different narrator, or a lot of them do. I bet you the last episode will have Zatanna as the narrator.
Okay, yeah, I'd be down for that. So, next week's the last one, so of this arc.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. So next week is before New Year's, right? It would be
26th.
The 26th. Okay, wait.
No, 26th? It's not the 26th. Wait a minute. 30th? Sorry, it's the 30th.
Okay. 30th. So next Young Justice will be the 30th. And then you're saying that there's no Young Justice for a little while, right? Like New Year's and there's a break?
Yeah, it's not gonna come back till the spring after that, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so maybe the next one is narrated by Zatanna, and then that's just the end of the arc,
That would be great. That's what I want to see, so please do that.
You're that Weissman.
Please do that 6 months ago when you wrote wrote this episode, and actually it's probably even earlier than that because it probably took 6 months to animate.
Right. Make sure you guys got that in whatever Asian country you're animating the show in. But anyway, Brian and I have talked about like what we are going to cover next, and I think we're saying that we're going to do Peacemaker, right? And we're going to do Book of Boba Fett.
Yes.
Okay. Nice. I'm down for both of those. More Boba Fett than Peacemaker, but I just want to see what the hell they're going to do with Peacemaker.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed Peacemaker in Suicide Squad. I thought he was some interesting comic relief.
Yeah,
but more than just comic relief at the same time. So I'm curious what it is, although I have zero background knowledge on the character outside of being watching that movie.
Yeah. I've seen him a little bit in DC Comics because they've tried to like bring him back a couple of times, and I know it's kind of funny because he's one of those characters that like is from a different company that DC like absorbed. They've done that with a lot of their heroes, and it's the same company that had like the Question, him, the Owl or whatever, the Owl Man, and essentially all the characters that became the characters of Watchmen.
Okay. Oh,
Night. Thank you. Yes, I think it Charlton, right? I think Charlton is the name of it. I might be wrong.
Yeah, that sounds. Yeah. No, because that's where Shazam came from.
Shazam is Charlton. There's another company that is like, all the people from Watchmen are that company.
Got it. Okay.
And Peacemaker is one of those characters. And then they made him into the comedian.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because the Question is Rorschach, right? And then Silk Spectre is another character. I don't remember which female character that is. And then Peacemaker is the comedian. Even like Ozymandias and Night Owl are other characters too.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna read up on this. I did not know that that's supposed to be the same character as comedian. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
that we have that's in this main universe. Although I guess are they sort of in the they got rid of that, right?
They did a thing with like Watchmen where it was another world and they crossed over.
Yeah,
but...
I had a hard time following that because those issues came out so far apart.
Yeah. I think it ended up with like a kid of Dr. Manhattan or like a Dr. Manhattan kid being in the regular DC universe, but I don't know. I almost feel like I could go back. Good.
It's interesting because like you said, we have if that was supposed to be a comedian, we have him in the regular DC universe. The Question is obviously in the regular DC universe. So I'm curious to see what else translated over in this essentially a duplicate character.
Oh, and also Dr. Manhattan is Captain Atom too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I can see that in the eyes.
Yes.
Okay.
I always wondered why they never did like, here's that team, but it's like of the DC versions of them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh,
Interesting. Okay.
dude, Blue Beetle is Night Owl.
Blue Beetle is I. Oh, okay.
Ted Grant's Blue Beetle is Night
Ted
Owl.
Cord. Ted Cord.
Whatever that one. Yes.
Ted Grant is Wildcat.
Wildcat.
Right?
Oh man, dude, I love talking to you. You actually know like all this shit too. It's awesome. Yeah. So it's like Blue Beetle, Peacemaker, Question, Captain Atom. Yeah, and then whoever is Silk Spectre and Ozymandias too.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna do some research on this. So before we review that show, then.
Yeah, hell yeah, shit yeah. So anyway, and the Vigilante's gonna be in that Peacemaker show too. That's another like kind of 80s.
Yes. Yeah, I think I remember seeing him in the trailer. He definitely seemed like comic relief.
Yeah. So anyway, we just did a whole little tangent on Peacemaker. The one thing that you guys are probably wanting to hear about is what we thought of the finale of Hawkeye. So Brian,
wait. Before we do that, I have to correct myself. I was 100% wrong, and Whitney Frost is not related to Emma Frost and Kristen Frost. I was wrong. I just had to put that out there. I said that last episode too, and I looked it up, and I was wrong.
Oh, all right. Well, I appreciate it. You know, not a lot of times people on YouTube admit stuff like that, so that's cool.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Okay, on to the review.
Now, here's the question: were you wrong about the quality of this show?
Was I wrong about the quality of the show?
Like, do you feel like this show is what you wanted it to be? Did it meet that expectation?
Yes, it did. Absolutely.
Okay.
It did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I get worried because like you and I were talking about like talking with Danny from the Laster Cast and talking about the Matrix, and I feel like I kind of feel differently about the Matrix Resurrections than you guys, and I think we feel differently about Ghostbusters, and I'm starting to kind of feel like I feel differently about Hawkeye than you do too.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, let's get into this. This makes it more fun, honestly. I mean, it's great when you agree, but it's honestly it's just as interesting when you disagree. Especially when we can have a civilized conversation about it. It's not people shouting on the internet. You're an idiot for liking this or whatever.
Oh yeah. I mean, here's the thing, right? Is that like with the Matrix? This might be a spoiler for our discussion for the Matrix, and with this. It's almost like I really, really want to love these things because I know where they come from and I want to support where they come from. But then the finished product, when I'm watching it, I'm like, is this doing something for me right now? Like, am I getting an emotional response because they've made it the right way and it's working for me? And I feel like with Hawkeye, it didn't really hit any of those buttons for me. Like it was kind of
cool. Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean by that, and I think I had that reaction with this show, and I did not have that reaction with the Matrix. So you're saying that's the opposite for you?
No, the Matrix. Here's a little spoiler for our Matrix discussion too. The Matrix, it's like I love what they made. It's like they totally made what they wanted to make, I think, and it has this like commentary on movies. But ultimately, it doesn't have that effect on you. Like, you don't feel it. Like, when you watch the first Matrix, there's this, like, suspense because you're worried about people dying. And you're like, oh, man, how are they going to get out of this? And you care. And that's kind of the way I felt about the Matrix Resurrections and Hawkeye, where it's kind of like, I kind of just don't care. And I love Neo, and I love Trinity, and I love, like, the world of the Matrix. And I love Clint Barton, and I love Kate Bishop. And I love Yelena, but I just kind of didn't care by this end of the episode. And that's it. It's hard for me to say because I love Marvel and I love the way that all this stuff, they've put it all together. So
interesting. Okay, yeah. I definitely felt differently about this. So yeah, can continue.
So, okay, so spoilers for this episode completely. Spoilers for the Hawkeye finale. Like, I felt like Hawkeye, it was almost like he's an afterthought in this episode, and that's fine. It could just be that this is about Kate Bishop, and like we're introducing Kate Bishop. Good. But he's just like, he's stuck up in a tree for a little bit. He does some stuff. There was more of an emotional beat with Hawkeye in the previous episode when he talked to Echo than in this episode, I felt. and he has Kate, like, and they're like, oh, we're gonna be partners. That's a good moment. But I felt like Hawkeye was just kind of this background guy. Now, Kate Bishop herself, she kind of confronts her mother and talks to her mother, and she fights the Kingpin. But it's like, am I excited because I'm worried that the Kingpin is going to kill her? Am I excited because the story is making the Kingpin seem like he's a big threat? Is it just I'm excited because that's Vincent D'Onofrio playing the Kingpin? I think it's just that last part. It's just that, oh, I know it's Vincent D'Onofrio playing the Kingpin, so I should be excited. And I think that's it. You know?
Well, yes, I mean that point absolutely, but and maybe her Kate fighting the Kingpin didn't necessarily was something I necessarily wanted or needed to see. I didn't expect it at all, to be perfectly honest.
Right,
I thought that he was just going to be in the episode and he was going to kind of linger in the background still, but no, he was front and center in here, and he had a major part in this episode and was essentially defeated in this episode.
Right.
I really enjoyed the fight scenes with the Kingpin in the sense that they made it. I mean, it's unbelievable because he's just a dude. He's just a big guy, and
Right.
and he gets hit by a car and he rips arrows out of his chest and all that. But that's kind of how he does it in the comics. It's like he's this super strong, really like thick, stocky guy, and he's
Right.
not a fat guy. He's just he's just stocky, I guess. Or I can't think of a better word than that right now.
No, that works.
So yeah, so they may have overestimated his strength with like literally throwing people across the room, but I enjoyed that they did that because it showed him that he is a physical threat, which I always appreciated about the Daredevil comics when they would fight in the comics. They always showed that how strong and imposing he really is.
Yeah. I honestly, the way that he fought, I actually really liked, and I didn't think it was over the top for the Kingpin character, even though he's a man. I know that like in the comics, they've said before that he has these like special suits that are like regular suits, but they like are bulletproof or knife proof. So I think that that's kind of what they were trying to make us think when they shot him point blank with the arrow, and then like they like blew him up, they hit him with a car, and they still walked away, and then Echo shot him. And of course, Echo shot him off camera. I'm like praying to God that he's not actually dead. I don't think he's dead. I think they'd show his dead body if he was.
Yeah, they can't give us this toy and take it away that quickly.
Right. And Marvel kind of has a reputation of doing things like that, where they're like, oh, this is kind of what you want, but it's not. We're not going to give you this.
You know what though? I remember a few episodes ago that I said before we saw Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I said if that movie didn't live up to what the hype and expectations were that Charlie Cox was going to appear and that the previous Spider-Man were going to appear, I said that it would be worse if the Charlie Cox thing wasn't real because it's such a big tease because we got the Kingpin reveal that same week, and there's an implication with them that there will be more of them coming.
Right.
So
right.
To do that, like if that's all that was just throwing them in there for that sake, and then we never see either of them ever again, that's messed up. That is not. That's taking what you just said about how Marvel this is what you want, but no, this is what you really want. That's taking it like a step too far,
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like it would be a real Cox tease. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If they were to do that. But here's the thing, and I don't want to go off on this tangent here because I still want to kind of hammer in these points. But like, I did think it would be interesting if Echo does shoot the Kingpin, but for whatever reason, he doesn't get hit. Maybe because like Jessica Jones shows up and gets in between the bullet and the Kingpin, and she has a connection to Echo, and that's a way to kind of shoehorn Jessica Jones as a character into the Echo show. Because like one thing I kind of want to put a pin in is they are trying to build up an Echo show, and
yeah,
I think that Echo was an interesting character in this show. I like how they set her up. But I don't know if I'd be like, oh, let me watch that Echo show. I'm super excited. And I think that the way that they would get us on board for that would be to take some other character from Marvel and stick them into that show too. So like, oh, we really want to see this person. And I feel like Jessica Jones is the clever person to use for that. I don't know.
I can get on board with that. So I think a lot of this whole episode, I was thinking like, wow, what the hell is this Echo show going to be about if
Right,
if
okay.
they remove Kingpin from the scenario?
Right.
Like,
Right.
let's say he does live anyway. Live
Yeah.
or die. The story of that is resolved. That's it. It's done. Like Echo got revenge for him taking over for putting the hit out on her father.
Right.
Even if he lives, it would they couldn't have her go after him again because that it would be redundant, you know?
Yeah.
So I have no idea what that show is about, and maybe having Jessica Jones in there would be interesting. Although shoehorning in there is it seems a little much. And I think, and while I don't want to say I didn't like Echo's participation in the show, I think you probably could have removed it,
Yes.
and the show would have been fine without it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay, so that's where my major issue comes in. That it's that there's so many different elements in this, and it just makes me think: do they put these elements in here so that they know we're excited about different aspects? Like, okay, so you got the Matt Fraction, David Aja comic, which they know we love, right? And so if you just adapted that straight, we would just be content and happy with that. We'd be so happy, right? And they got Kate Bishop. That's great. Like, I think that they put in what's her face? The mom that played Eleanor, the woman that played Eleanor. That's
Vera Farmiga.
Vera Farmiga, thank you. Like, I gotta think that they still, even though they didn't show it in this episode, that they would make her into Madame Mask. It's like, why would you have Vera Farmiga just for this little throwaway part? That doesn't make sense to me. Right?
Well, I mean, with that, I think she attempted to redeem herself enough to a point that I don't think it makes sense for her to be Madame Mask anymore. Like, I would have liked that if she was going to stay a villain, but she tried to redeem herself. She tried to get out of the whole deal with Kingpin, and she seemed to show remorse when she was talking to Kate. So Madame Mask is like the arch nemesis of Kate, really, in a way, in the comics.
Yeah.
I don't see that working here anymore.
Okay.
Although I loved your idea initially about that, and I think that would have been a great thing to do. I don't see it happening anymore.
Yeah. Well, okay, so that's, you see, you're still kind of like giving me these stones to walk on, right? Because like that didn't happen, right? And I watched the end credit scenes, and the end credit I felt was a real Cox tease right there, man. Was the end credits where it's just like they're just gonna show us the musical number from Rogers the musical, and it's like, as fans, we get upset because we're like, oh, we're expecting Mephisto, or like Bullseye's going to show up, or some kind of random shit, right? But it's like it's wrong, kind of, to think that like they have to satisfy us. And I feel like ultimately what they have to do is they have to satisfy us with a story that's a good story that has an emotional payoff. And I think that we, as fans, and not just, I don't mean you and me necessarily, but just like everybody, we expect these like story beats now because we have like 26 or 27 fucking movies and multiple TV shows. We expect certain things to happen. And I feel like this show, it was like, oh, we're setting you up for this, but then they just didn't do it. You know what I'm saying? Like, there was no like, what's the big next thing from, like, because every Marvel thing is like a stepping stone to another Marvel thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, at the beginning of every Marvel series we've reviewed, I always ask the question, what is this setting up? What is next after this? Where does this lead? And I kind of get your point here that I feel like maybe they didn't set up enough here, and we were expecting more of a setup. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. To have everything be a setup for something else later necessarily, and I don't think that it's without setup. I mean, obviously, it does set up some things. It does set up Echo. It does set up, Clint and Kate working together more. It sets up Kate on a different part of the country, which is something that her solo book is about, is her going to the West Coast. I'm gonna optimistically think that Kingpin is still around and he will appear again. So I think there is setup here, and it's not necessarily the setup that we expected, but I was satisfied with it. Like I remember that like I had WandaVision as my favorite MCU show, and I really loved everything that set up. The whole structure of that show was incredible, but the end of that show was not what anyone expected at all. It was still satisfying, but like everyone was expecting Mephisto to show up or Doctor Strange to show up, and that didn't happen. And I think that's fine. And I think maybe that show taught me to kind of rein in the hype and the speculation. But I don't think that the ending of this show was as much of a letdown as the ending of WandaVision was compared to what everyone wanted to happen.
That is okay. Wow. Okay. So I think that like when they set things up and it's like this payoff of like it's building into something bigger, WandaVision, you're right. It didn't hit those marks that we were expecting just based on our crazed speculation that we were doing, right? But however, I feel like that whole sequence where she's like saying goodbye to her children and goodbye to that version of Vision, I feel like that is way more emotionally satisfying than I think I've seen in any of these finales of these MCU shows.
I would say maybe emotionally destructive rather than satisfying.
Okay. But the point is you're feeling an emotion, right? It's like I'm feeling something from this versus it's just like nostalgia or anticipation of something, right? And so I think that's why that finale felt final and it felt like, oh, this is a story going towards something, and it hit a story beat. It didn't do that Marvel thing where it's like, oh, well, there's even a bigger thing, and there's Mephisto, and it's tied to this overarching story. But for its own story, it had this resolution. So, like, just for argument's sake and just for fun, what do you think was the story for Clint Barton Hawkeye in this show?
Resolving his actions as Ronin during the blip, and just protecting his family. That's always kind of his thing, is his family.
That's okay. That's a good point. He does. That is a good point. He barbecues the Ronin costume with Kate. I felt like there was a whole aspect where Kate was saying, hey, you could be a superhero. You can have this public image. And I feel like they didn't really kind of go forward with that. And maybe that will lead to something. But like Jeremy Renner's done now, right, at this point?
I don't know. I actually don't know. I think that was the intention. But with the ending of the show, I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like when all of these shows ended, they pretty quickly came out and said, this was a series finale. We'll see this person again here. We'll see this person in this movie or whatever. They did not do that here. So I think I want to say that this is a little more open-ended in the sense that they have ideas for another season, but they're not sure how it was going to do ratings wise, and they're waiting for that to solidify to see if it's worth doing another season. So almost like a more traditional television renewal cycle.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Like Scarlet Witch, they said that was it. That was the end of it. WandaVision, that was the end of it. You'll see her in Doctor Strange 2. Captain Falcon and Winter Soldier, Captain America 4. Loki has a season 2. They said that all pretty quickly afterwards. I mean, maybe it's only been 2 days. It's Christmas. Maybe they don't want to get into a news cycle right now with that. So maybe we'll hear that like next week or maybe the first week into the new year, or something.
That's a good.
Even What If, they said there'll be a season 2 of What If, but they haven't said this was a series finale, and they haven't said there's a season 2 yet. So I'm not sold on this being the last appearance of Jeremy Renner based on the fact that Kate goes back to the West Coast. I mean, I don't know where the hell they are.
Right. They're on a farm.
Kate goes to the farm.
Right. What do you call it? What about, because that also brings up one other thing too. Do you feel like them finding the watch and giving it to his wife, is that confirming that she's Mockingbird, you think?
Yes, Agent 19. Yeah, the 19 on there.
I didn't see the fucking number. There was a number on the bottom of the shield symbol, wasn't there? God
Yeah.
damn
So,
it.
I mean, you can speculate. The speculation I feel about on that is that is it actually Bobby Morse and then she changed her name, or and because she's a retired agent, or was it just she was Agent 19, maybe had a designation of Mockingbird, and and it's just like a wink and a nod that Clint and Bobby were married in the comics at some point.
Okay.
I don't think they will ever answer that. I don't think they need to answer. I think it's enough for me.
Yeah.
Maybe if you were a huge Agents of Shield fan, you might feel a little disappointed, I guess, potentially. But I was satisfied with that reveal there. I mean, that's what we thought it was going to happen. Is what we guessed, and that was enough of a confirmation for me.
Okay. All right. Well, see, you're kind of swaying me. And I wonder, if we end up doing this Matrix review, I wonder if you're going to kind of sway me with the. I have some pretty hardcore feelings about the new Matrix movie too. But
I can't wait to do that because I mean, Danny does not like the other sequels.
I don't think he even saw the third one, right?
I think I think he did, but I know that I'm pretty sure that he has swayed some of our other friends to not even see the sequels because he didn't like them that much. So I'm really curious to see how all three of us stand on that one.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I mean, we both are long time Matrix fans. I'm pretty sure we saw both the sequels together, didn't we?
I think we did.
Didn't know we were doing the first one.
Right, but we saw it with a certain friend of ours that we won't say his name, but yeah, a guy that is not a part of our life anymore, but yeah, a good friend. People are like, what the fuck are they talking about? But the Matrix thing, I think we're gonna have to wait till after Christmas because I know Danny talked about doing it tonight. I just don't think that would fly too well at my house right on Christmas Eve night.
Yeah, totally fine.
Right. But I'm still down for doing it. With Hawkeye, though, just to kind of like my final thoughts, because I know you did a ranking. I want to do the ranking, too. I guess, like, to me, it felt like there was a lot of different threads that they threw in there and not necessarily that they're leading to something like we're just assuming because it's Marvel that certain things are going to lead to other things. They didn't like literally in the story show us like, oh, the swordsman's going to go off and do this, or like this is really Madame Mask, or like stuff like that. But I don't know. It kind of fell flat. All these shows in general, there's parts of them that I really like, and then there's parts that I kind of are like, oh, that's awkward. And I feel like that's the way for the majority of Marvel movies too. Just the best of the Marvel movies are the ones that have the least amount of those kind of awkward moments and the most kind of high emotional moments. And so, like, for me, just to clarify what the fuck I mean by like the awkward moments, kind of feel like the stuff with like the LARPing people and
okay, wait. I have to interrupt the LARPing people. I think sometimes it feels when they try to insert something that's in real life that just doesn't have like a proper like cinematic translation, like it doesn't seem cool or like that. It seems weird and awkward that they made them LARPers. Like it's something. I have a lot of things to say about the Matrix with this too, in this kind of same sense. There's some things in real life that don't translate into storytelling. But I like what the LARPers represented, which was the neighbors in the apartment building from the Fraction Aha run. And I mean, one of them was Grills.
Right.
And I think, and speaking of Grills too, I think the biggest disappointment I have about the show is that no one said Hawkeye once.
Right. That's true. Yeah, no one did in any one of the episodes.
No one said Hawkeye. Not even one of the bros.
Okay. Wow. That's pretty crazy. But speaking of him and Hawkeye, there's Clown, right? Which they even announced that like Clown was going to be in the show, and it's essentially
they announced him as Kazi, and we all assumed it was going to be as Clown. But I honestly think that they would have served the show better if they had Clown as being the leader of the tracksuits rather than having Echo. Yes. That's what I meant. But I don't think we needed to have Echo in this show. I don't think did a good enough job setting her up necessarily, other than she was a villain and maybe she's not now, and maybe she's kind of like a darker vigilante. Maybe.
Yeah.
Like, that's all that I really got out of that. But I think that would have better served the show to not have her there and to just have Kazi maybe take on that alter ego as Clown and be the kind of head tracksuit guy or a enforcer of the tracksuits or something.
Yes. I'm actually glad that you brought that up, because if he was the enforcer, then he's very scary in the comics. And I think that that's kind of my problem, that I didn't feel in Spider-Man No Way Home, but I did feel in the Matrix movie and this, where it's starting to feel like it's getting to the point where you don't feel this tension because you don't feel like people are going to die. It's like in Black Widow, there was this kind of tension because of the way that the film was made, that you thought that maybe like her adopted mom or her dad might die, because it was this sort of like this lethal kind of. They have to show people dying, right? And they show Echo's dad dying, and then I guess they show like the swordsman's uncle die in this show. But in general, it just doesn't seem lethal. Like they're shooting the tracksuit guys, and the tracksuit guys are like getting blown up and stuff. And it's like that in the comic too, where like they kind of just shoot them, and there's always tracksuit guys. But there isn't this sense of like someone shooting a gun. If you get hit, you're gonna die. And I understand, like in most Marvel movies, that's absent. But in the Winter Soldier, there's that kind of oppressive feeling, like, oh, there's tension, there's suspense. In Endgame, in all the really good Marvel movies, there's that feeling of like someone could die. In this, it's like I didn't think anyone could die at any point.
No, but at the same time, I never got that feeling that anyone was going to die in the Fraction run either. It's definitely a more lighthearted action adventure story. I don't think it's meant to have the kind of life or death stakes. I don't think the life or death stakes works in every single thing. I think if they had that in every single movie, it would be tiring. You know, if somebody died. I mean, there wasn't anybody to die in this really, and you could argue that they killed Kazi and they potentially killed Kingpin, although we don't want them to kill Kingpin.
Right. Look, I see your point. I just think that like in the comics, in that run, that Fraction run, one of the neighbors does get killed by Clown.
Oh yeah, Grill. Is it a Grills?
I think so. And so it's like that's real shocking, right? When he dies, and like, like in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? They kill U.S. agent's partner, and even though it's like his partner, they still kind of built him up to where you kind of cared about him, and you like it sucked when he died, right? And you felt that guilt for Bucky when he killed that old man's son. Like you felt like you kind of felt, I'm just talking about like kind of feeling these emotions and stuff. And I don't know. I just felt like kind of disconnected from Hawkeye and from this. And go ahead.
This is what I have to say is, I'm really going to reiterate what I said practically, but I don't think that every show needs to have a death or have that threat of death. And I think this show perfectly captures the theme I guess it's theme of that comic run. It's the feel of it. It gets it. It got it. It nailed it. It took a Clint that was not the Clint that I pictured and kind of sort of did it. So ultimately, that's why I was satisfied with this show. I think they took something that I didn't think that could be done, and they melded it into something that I loved and wanted it to be to the best of their ability. And I think they kind of nailed it.
All right. Well, I will give it to you then. And I, you know what? There was one other sequence that I thought was very much like the comic in that last episode too. First of all, when they're shooting all the tracksuit guys with all the trick arrows, that was pretty great.
Yes.
And that was very much like the comics. But when Yelena is fighting Kate and they're kind of going, like you're kind of following through the office and it's almost like comic book panels. I thought that was very much like the Fraction run too.
Yeah, that definitely has got some vibes from that. And I really enjoyed the interactions between Yelena and Kate. I hope we see more of them together at some point. Although at the same time, I still find it kind of hard to believe that Yelena was so adamant about not like trying to actually hurt her or anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of works because Yelena is very cocky and brash. And she's so confident in herself that she knows that she doesn't have to try. you know, to really hurt her, to hurt Kate. So she
Yeah.
doesn't. But it's at the same time, it seemed a little too much, I guess.
I understand. Yeah, especially like when they're in the elevator and she's kind of swatting at her.
Yeah. It was a little too much, but I liked it though on some level. Like they had a chemistry, I think, and I would like to see more of it.
Okay. All right, man. Well, I see your points. You know, I don't just dismiss them, and I think you are right about a lot of it, especially that it doesn't. It can be fun and not serious like those other things I referenced too. So
yeah, yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Fun. Yes, it was. The comic was fun. Yeah, this was a fun show.
Right. Well, so you got me excited because you mentioned that you did the ranking. So I actually would love to hear your ranking then of the 5 MCU shows. So I'll just do a reminder for our viewers, but 5 shows are WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, What If, Loki. Yeah. There you go. So what's your ranking?
From the bottom, I still have What If at number 5. Then I have, man, you know, I'm really starting to reconsider this, but I have Falcon and Winter Soldier at 4 and Loki at 3. I'm the further I get from those shows, and after watching this, I almost feel like I want to flip those, but I'm not quite 100% there yet. So I want to put them both at like 3.5 for now. Then I have WandaVision at 2, and I have Hawkeye at 1 because I really enjoyed this show. I think that I wasn't let down about anything major. I think it was the most consistent show out of all of them, and it like I said, it did something that I didn't think it could do. I was excited when they announced it. Yeah. I thought, and I didn't know how they can turn MCU Hawkeye into comic Hawkeye, and they did it in a way that make both work, and I think it worked well. I definitely see your points about how there were times where Clint seemed to take like a backseat to everything else going on in the show, and you know what though? I mean, there's even jokes about, you know, in the comic about they're both called Hawkeye, and they both talk about who's better and who's whatever.
Yeah,
I think it kind of works. It's both their shows. It's equal, and I want to see a season 2.
All right. Oh boy. Okay. Well, you and I think we see it a little differently. We see this a little differently from each other. So oh boy, we're turning to Siskel and Ebert over here. Okay, so number 5 is Hawkeye.
Wow. Lower than What If.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Loki is 4.
Okay.
What If is 3. Falcon and the Winter Soldier is 2. WandaVision is 1.
All right, I have to ask, what brings What If over Loki and Hawkeye? I mean, because we sat through all those reviews of those shows. Most of them we felt were like more, like there were things we liked, but there was nothing to them necessarily.
Yeah. Oh, dude.
I mean, I totally respect your opinion. I'm just very curious to see how that show goes above both of those shows, really. Well, Loki was super lopsided. Episodes 2 and 3 were like bottom of the barrel of all these shows, you know?
Yes. I think that is what did Loki in for me, is like you said, 2 and 3 are pretty bad, you know, relatively speaking. They're
slow.
Yeah, low. Yeah. But slow, then
slow, not low.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I remember the one where they're on the train and I'm just like, oh.
It was extremely slow, and that's why it's ranked low.
Well, so the reason why I picked What If over Loki and Hawkeye, for Loki and Hawkeye, I really did not like the way they ended. And I think that these Marvel shows, we kind of talked about this today a lot already, but so much of them is our speculation, and so much of them is like the building up. It's almost like, hey, you can deal with this right now. If you don't think this quality is that great right now, it's okay, because this is leading to this thing that's going to get you excited. It's leading to this conclusion that's going to lead into another thing, right? And I feel like in both the case of Loki and Hawkeye, it's like all these things where they're kind of teasing you and exciting you about like, oh, well, the possibilities, but it's like, is the end product a complete thing? And I know that like, what if there's a lot of episodes that we thought were like kind of so-so. There were some that we actually thought were bad, but like, I just like the fact that it's like there's one and that's it, and then there's one and that's it. And even though they do kind of tie together.
Hold on, I have a question. So at the same time, you're mad at Hawkeye for not setting up enough and being there only to set up and not being there for setting things up. Come on. I gotta point it out.
Okay. So with Hawkeye, I think that you hit the nail on the head with the Echo thing. I really do think that like you need to just take Echo out of there. I almost feel like you could take Kingpin out of there, and if you just had like Clown or even just like a guy named Kazi, but make him like the enforcer and make him sort of
a little scarier.
Right. This scarier thing that behind the scenes, I think that would make the show a lot more interesting. And it's just like too many things packed in. And like Yelena's good, but maybe introduce her a little earlier, maybe have her have a longer.
Another thing too, I feel like with Yelena, actually, they probably could have removed Yelena there from the story as well. It sort of works, and it's great to see her. I really like Florence Pugh as the character, and I definitely want to see more of her too. But you probably could cut that out of the show as well. That was actually what I didn't mention this before, but I actually felt that the resolution between Yelena and Clint on that fight there, I felt it was supposed to have a lot more weight than it did. I mean, I did feel something there because they're both kind of like, lost without Natasha. But just like the conflict shouldn't have existed. Yeah. It was too artificial, and like it shouldn't have been there like that. They definitely should have met and maybe had some awkwardness, maybe some slight antagonistic relationship at first until they kind of air it all out and say ultimately I'm a dick because I miss Natasha. Oh, I'm a jerk because I miss Natasha. Like, I think that would have worked better too. But yeah.
I think you're 100% right, and I think that you could have taken her out too. You could have maybe made this like 4 episodes, and like just kind of played up, like focus more on the comic stuff that it was influenced by, and just kind of take out this extra stuff that they're kind of popping in there to get us all excited. And I think honestly, you could have taken out Swordsman too, No,
they needed Swordsman. I mean, Swordsman is I think one of us called this was a red herring. And I can accept that. They needed to hide. I mean, it was probably meant to be more red herring for Eleanor, and then ultimately the Kingpin because Eleanor was working for Kingpin. So they needed to throw somebody in there and that seemed like a villain, so they could flip it all on their head. And really, we instantly called Eleanor being bad, like 100%. We know she was better from the comics. We did not necessarily see that Kingpin was definitely going to come. We wanted it. And it happened. It delivered.
Yes.
Street level Mephisto happened.
I'm glad that Kingpin was able to come, and it definitely wasn't a Cox tease. Yeah. Yes. So anyway, when I start making jokes like that, we've kind of look. Here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. I didn't make my list until you reminded me that we do this every time we do a Marvel show. So I think I need to kind of think my list out a little bit more. And maybe What If needs to be lower. However, I don't think that makes me change my feelings on Hawkeye. I still feel very strongly about WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I kind of feel like Falcon and the Winter Soldier has some kind of bumps. I don't like the finale of that as much either. But I still feel like there's a lot of really solid episodes in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And I feel like WandaVision, pretty much every episode is solid, right? So those are my definite 1 and 2. The other ones are kind of, you could maybe move them around a little bit. But ultimately, what I want from these kind of shows is I want it to be just kind of tighter and not that they're shoving so much stuff to get us excited. It more like it tells this comprehensive story versus we're just putting this in here so that you can make a YouTube video about it. So
who wants to make YouTube videos about it?
Yeah. every fucking week on Christmas
And we'll see
Eve.
you guys next Wednesday at
Yes, yeah. By the way,
10:15 Eastern.
yeah. Make sure you like and subscribe. Yeah. So, dude, I appreciate you taking, over an hour to talk to me about these two things. I guess next week, post-Christmas, we're going to talk about Book of Boba Fett episode 1 and Young Justice episode 13.
Yeah, so we actually can't do it Wednesday because neither of those things will be out.
Oh, shit. Okay.
No. Boba Fett will be out on the 29th, right?
29th is Book of Boba Fett. Right.
That's the one. Okay, so we could watch that on Wednesday. So yeah, we'd have to save Young Justice for the next week.
No, we could just do. Why don't we just move it to Thursday and just do Boba Fett and Young Justice for this Thursday coming up? Sound good?
Yep.
Okay. Cool, man. All right. So until then, me and Brian will see you guys next time.